Auntie Kwachawa's heart leaped with joy when she first held her baby girl, Ajoa Nkunim. She was her miracle, her only child. But that joy was short-lived. The doctors had to remove Kwachawa's womb after the birth due to severe bleeding. Postpartum hemorrhage, they called it. The news crushed her spirit. She would never have another child. Tears fell as she cradled Nkunim, her tiny daughter, vowing to pour every bit of love and care into this precious soul. Nkunim was her world, her hope, her everything. Kwachawa's husband, Pa Kwasi, was less enthusiastic. Although he loved Nkunim, the thought of having just one child gnawed at him. In their culture, many children were a blessing, a sign of prosperity and a secure future. He never shared these feelings with Kwachawa, fearing how it might hurt her. But over time, the desire for more children consumed him. One quiet afternoon, while Kwachawa was playing with Nkunim, a knock came at the door. She opened it to find a woman she had never seen before, standing there with two young children, a boy and a girl. The woman looked at her with tear-filled eyes and spoke words that shattered Kwachawa's world. "I'm Pa Kwasi's wife," the woman said softly, "and these are his children." Kwachawa's heart stopped. What are you saying?" she stammered, feeling her legs weaken. "Pa Kwasi's children?" The woman nodded, her face filled with guilt. "He's been with me for years. I thought you knew. I'm sorry." Kwachawa collapsed into a chair, tears burning her eyes. She didn't know what to think, what to feel. Her entire world was crashing around her. Hours later, when Pa Kwasi returned home, he didn't even try to deny it. "Yes, they are my children," he admitted, eyes avoiding hers. "I want more children, Kwachawa, and I can't have that with you. I need to move on." They brought the matter before the village elders. Kwachawa pleaded with them, with Pa Kwasi, tears streaming down her face. "I can't leave," she cried. "Who will marry me now? I am barren. No man will take me. Please, let me stay." But Pa Kwasi was firm. "I can't continue this marriage," he said coldly. "I will do what is right and end it." The elders, with heavy hearts, saw there was no saving the marriage. And just like that, Kwachawa was forced out of her home. She was alone, abandoned by the man she had built her life with, left to raise their daughter, with nothing but pain in her heart. After the divorce, Pa Kwasi disappeared from their lives. He abandoned not just Kwachawa, but also his own daughter. He never sent money, never paid for Nkunim's schooling. Kwachawa was left alone to raise Nkunim in a world full of struggles. Every day was a battle. Nkunim, sharp and curious, would often ask her mother, "Why are we so poor, Mama? Why do we suffer when others have so much?" Kwachawa's heart broke every time she heard those words. She wished she had the answers. She wished she could give her daughter more, but all she could do was hold her close and say, "My child, don't focus on what others have. Focus on becoming someone who can change this. One day we will leave this hardship behind. One day you will shine." And Nkunim believed her. She studied hard, driven by the hope her mother gave her. But as the years passed, Kwachawa grew tired. The weight of raising Nkunim alone, with no help and no money, was crushing. Every meal was a struggle, every school fee a mountain too high to climb. But she never let Nkunim see her despair. She couldn't. Late at night, Kwachawa would sit alone and cry, her heart heavy with the loneliness and betrayal. She had lost everything except for Nkunim, and for her, she would endure any suffering. In the darkness of their small home, Kwachawa would whisper to herself, "For Nkunim, I must keep going. For her, I must survive. Despite the pain and the struggles, Nkunim completed secondary school and was finally enrolled at the University of Ghana, Legon. It was a dream come true, but for her mother, Auntie Kwachewa, it was yet another battle. Kwachewa had to sacrifice everything to ensure her only daughter could attend university. People in their small town called her the mad woman because of how she lived. She never bought expensive clothes or sandals. She never visited the salon to fix her hair. Instead, she was always working tirelessly, accepting odd jobs and helping farmers in exchange for small wages. All of this just to keep her daughter in school. When people saw her worn-out appearance, they would say, "Kwachewa, at least take care of yourself. Visit the salon, buy a decent dress." But she would always respond with a determined voice, "I'm only focused on my daughter's future." Her dedication was boundless, but it also cost her friendships. People distanced themselves from her, thinking she had lost her mind. Yet Kwachewa didn't care. Every time she looked at Nkunim, she saw the future she was working so hard for, the better life she hoped her daughter would one day have. But at the university, Nkunim was living a life far from the harsh realities of her mother's sacrifices. To her friends, she appeared to be from a wealthy family. She wore expensive clothes, carried fashionable bags, and even talked about vacations she had never actually been on. "My father is abroad," she would tell her friends casually. "My mother is a successful businesswoman who imports goods from Europe." Nkunim crafted an entirely fake life, feeding her classmates lies to maintain the illusion that she was well off. She had forgotten, or perhaps chosen to forget, the painful reality back home. Forgotten the sleepless nights her mother spent, toiling under the sun, doing back-breaking work just to send her money. Whenever she needed more cash to sustain her fake life, Nkunim would call her mother. "Mama, I need some money for school items. They're expensive, and I can't do without them." She made it sound urgent, as though it were a matter of necessity. Kwachewa, who had nothing left, would immediately go out in search of work. She would follow the farmers to their fields, weeding, planting, and sometimes even carrying heavy loads for them. The money she earned was meager, but she would save every penny, no matter how much her body ached from the labor. After days of relentless work, she would finally have enough to send to Nkunim. When she called her daughter with the good news, her voice would tremble with exhaustion, but also pride. "Nkunim, I've managed to get the money. You can buy what you need for school now." Instead of gratitude, Nkunim would take the money and use it to buy designer clothes or new shoes, just to impress her friends. The girl who was once clever, humble, and full of dreams had become someone obsessed with appearances and approval. She no longer asked her mother how she was doing, nor did she seem to care about the struggle Kwachewa faced just to send her that money. As the months went by, Nkunim's lies became bigger, and the demands for money became more frequent. Each time she asked for money, her mother complied, doing whatever she could to make sure her daughter didn't feel ashamed or left out among her peers. Kwachewa's love for her daughter was so strong that she never questioned Nkunim's requests, never thought to say, "Enough." But slowly, the truth began to eat at Kwachewa's heart. She noticed that the more money she sent, the less she heard from Nkunim. The long phone calls they once shared turned into short, curt conversations. "Thanks, Mama," Nkunim would say quickly before hanging up. There was no warmth in her voice anymore, no appreciation. Kwachewa's heart raced with excitement as she made her way to Accra, to the University of Ghana, Legon, to surprise her daughter, Nkunim. She hadn't seen her in a while, and the thought of visiting made her feel a surge of joy, despite her exhaustion from the endless labor she endured. She had sold her land, her jewels, everything she owned, to pay for Nkunim's education. Her life revolved around the hope that her sacrifices would one day be rewarded with her daughter's success. But deep down, there was an ache, a question she could never shake off. Why did Nkunim always stop her from visiting? Kwachewa had asked several times to visit the campus, but Nkunim would always give an excuse. "Mama, I'm too busy. I'll come home soon," she would say hurriedly over the phone. Each time, Kwachewa felt a little piece of her heart break, wondering why her own daughter seemed to push her away. But today, none of that mattered. She had decided to surprise Nkunim. She wore her best clothes, though they were still old and worn. Her hair was unkempt, her sandals tattered, but none of that concerned her. She was going to see her daughter, and that was all that mattered. Arriving on the bustling campus, she felt a bit lost, holding on to Nkunim's picture, asking students if they knew her. But after hours of searching, no one could recognize her daughter from the small, faded photo. Tired but determined, Kwachewa pressed on until she encountered two young women sitting by a tree. "Excuse me," Kwachewa asked with a tired smile, showing them the picture of Nkunim. "I'm looking for my daughter. Her name is Nkunim. Do you know her?" The two girls glanced at the photo, then at Kwachewa's ragged appearance. They exchanged amused looks, their lips curling into mocking smiles. One of them chuckled. "Nkunim? Your daughter? You must be joking." Kwachewa's smile faltered. "Yes, she's my only daughter," she said, her voice filled with pride and a touch of confusion. "I've come all the way from the village to surprise her." The girls laughed harder, making Kwachewa feel small, her heart pounding in her chest. One of them leaned closer, inspecting Kwachewa from head to toe. "Are you sure you're not lost, old woman? Nkunim lives a luxurious life. Her mother is supposedly a rich businesswoman. You, no offense, don't look like you fit that description." Kwachewa's chest tightened. "Please, she's my daughter. I've worked hard day and night to send her here." The girls continued to laugh, but finally one of them said, "Fine, follow us. We'll take you to her." As the two girls approached Nkunim's door, they knocked lightly before entering. Nkunim was sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone. One of the girls smirked and said, "Nkunim, there's a mentally deranged person outside looking for you. She claims to be your mother, but we know that's a lie. I mean, look at you, with rich parents and all. That woman doesn't look like she belongs anywhere near here. She must be mad. But hey, let's go have a look at her for fun." Nkunim's heart sank instantly. Fear gripped her chest like icy fingers. Her face paled. Her fake life, the carefully constructed lies, were about to crumble. She knew who it was. That mentally deranged person could only be her mother, her poor, hard-working mother, who had sacrificed everything for her. The same woman who had sold all she had just to ensure she stayed in school. The realization hit her hard. She wanted to run, to hide, but there was nowhere to go. Reluctantly, she followed the girls outside, her heart pounding in her chest. And there, standing in front of her in ragged clothes, with unkempt hair and tired, sad eyes, was Kwachewa, her mother, the woman who had lost her womb, bringing Nkunim into this world. The woman who lost her husband because she could no longer have children. The woman who had worked herself to the bone to give her daughter an education. Kwachewa's face lit up when she saw Nkunim. "Ajoa Nkunim, Atu," she called with joy, using the endearing term that meant hug in their dialect. But before Kwachewa could move forward, one of the girls snickered and asked, "Wait, do you actually know this woman?" Nkunim felt her heart twist with fear and shame. She swallowed hard, and without thinking, the words that escaped her mouth were like venom. "No, I don't know her," she spat, her voice loud and angry. "I have no idea who she is." Kwachewa's smile faltered, confusion clouding her face. "Ah, my daughter, what is wrong?" she said, her voice trembling with pain. "Why are you denying me? Is it because of my appearance? Have you forgotten everything I've done for you? Oh, Nkunim, why have you changed? Why are you doing this?" But Nkunim, overwhelmed by shame and the desire to protect the false image she had built, pushed her mother back. "Shut up. Who are you? Do you know me? Are you out of your mind? Look at me. Do I look like someone you know?" Kwachewa's eyes welled up with tears. The daughter she had sacrificed everything for was denying her, rejecting her in front of these strangers. "My daughter," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please don't do this. I am your mother. I am like this because of you. Why are you ashamed of me?" But Nkunim turned away coldly, her heart too heavy with shame to respond. "I don't know this woman," she said firmly to her friends, who were now smirking, amused by the spectacle. "She's probably just some mad woman." As Nkunim walked away, one of the girls, sensing Kwachewa's deep pain and sadness, decided to help her. "Come," she said softly, "I'll help you get to the Medina station. You shouldn't be here." Kwachewa didn't protest. She followed silently, her heart shattered into pieces. The daughter she had loved so deeply had pushed her away, denied her in front of everyone. Tears streamed down her face as they walked. She couldn't understand what she had done to deserve this. Meanwhile, back in her room, Nkunim collapsed onto her bed, sobbing uncontrollably. The weight of what she had just done crashed over her like a tidal wave. She had denied the one person who had given everything for her. Her heart ached with guilt, but a part of her told herself it was too late to fix things. "I've made my choice," she whispered through her tears. "I can't go back now." For days, she struggled with the guilt, but eventually she forced herself to move on, burying the pain deep within her. She consoled herself by thinking there was no turning back. She couldn't change what had happened, so she decided to continue living the life she had built, no matter the cost. Kwachewa, on the other hand, never recovered from that day. She returned to her village, carrying the weight of her daughter's rejection on her frail shoulders. She didn't tell anyone about what had happened. She kept the pain to herself, afraid that if people knew, they would mock her, laugh at her for raising a daughter who had disowned her. Her health began to deteriorate rapidly. The heartache and loneliness consumed her. She never heard from Nkunim again. Her daughter had turned off her phone, blocked all attempts at contact, and the fear of facing the same humiliation if she ever returned to the university kept Kwachewa away. After completing her degree at the University of Ghana, Nkunim felt on top of the world. In her third year, she had met a rich guy on campus who had supported her financially and emotionally. He was the answer to all her problems, or so she thought. He promised to marry her after school, and she believed him, feeling that her struggles were finally over. But 2 months after graduation, the same guy shattered her dreams. One evening, with little emotion, he told her, "I'm traveling abroad soon. My parents don't want us to continue this relationship. It's over." Nkunim was devastated. She hadn't done anything wrong, but he abandoned her. The pain of losing him weighed heavily on her heart. making her question everything about herself. Why was this happening to her? Why couldn't she find lasting happiness? After some time, she tried to move on. She met another man, a responsible and kind man who seemed to care for her deeply. She thought she had found love again, someone who would stay by her side. But one evening, completely out of the blue, he looked at her with cold eyes and said, "I think it's best if you pack your things and leave." There was no explanation, no reason. Just like that, she was alone again. By this time, Nkunim was beginning to feel cursed. Nothing in her life was going right since she graduated. No relationship seemed to last, and every time she got her hopes up, they came crashing down. In a stroke of what seemed like luck, she met a white man at the Accra Mall. He was charming, attentive, and quickly fell in love with her. They spent months together, and he promised to marry her. For the first time in a long while, Nkunim felt like she could breathe again. She thought, maybe this is the solution to all my problems. Maybe marrying this man will bring an end to my hardship. But one day, she received a message that left her heart shattered once more. The message from the white man read, "Nkunim, you've done nothing wrong, but I feel like we should end this. I don't know why, but something tells me it's time to move on." It felt like the world was caving in around her. What was wrong with her? Why was every man who promised her love and stability leaving her? She cried bitterly that night, questioning what was wrong with her life. The struggles didn't end with her relationships. Nkunim had opportunities to start businesses and build her own success, but every attempt seemed to end in failure. The first business opportunity came when she was offered the chance to sell high-end designer clothes to young professionals. She thought it would be an easy way to make money. She invested everything into the business. But before she could even get started, her suppliers backed out, and she was left with nothing. She lost every CD she had saved. Next, she tried her hand at real estate, thinking it would be a stable and profitable venture. She borrowed money to get started, but the housing market crashed, and she was unable to sell a single property. She was left with debt and no income, forced to close the business. Determined to make something work, Nkunim took on a franchise for a popular restaurant chain. She thought this was the opportunity that would finally lift her out of her financial troubles. But internal management problems led to the collapse of the franchise, and she was left again with nothing, her reputation tarnished by the failure. Her final attempt was an online business selling imported beauty products. She poured all her resources into this venture, thinking that the demand for beauty products would guarantee success. However, her shipment got delayed, and by the time the products arrived, other competitors had taken over the market. She couldn't sell her inventory, and once again, her dreams were crushed. As if these business failures weren't enough, Nkunim faced repeated rejections in her career as well. She was hired by 4 different companies over the course of 2 years, each time hoping that she could settle into a stable job. But every time, she was abruptly let go. In one instance, she was dismissed after just 3 months without any explanation. In another, her boss told her that she was overqualified and that they couldn't afford to keep her. Everywhere she went, it felt like a dark cloud followed her. Colleagues whispered behind her back, calling her cursed, because no one could understand why she kept getting fired despite her qualifications. Each time she tried to start over, it seemed like the universe conspired against her. The culmination of these repeated failures left Nkunim emotionally drained, questioning what had gone wrong with her life. She had no family support, no stable job, no love. The once bright, ambitious university graduate now felt like a shell of herself, haunted by the idea that she was somehow cursed, destined for nothing but hardship. Nkunim's life seemed to be spiraling into a cycle of heartbreak, disappointment, and rejection. After her failed relationships and business ventures, she found herself seeking solace in religion. She moved from one church to another, praying desperately for answers. She wanted to know why nothing in her life seemed to work out, why every door closed in her face just as she was about to step through. One Sunday, she attended a new church, where she met a young and charismatic pastor. He was kind and gentle, always preaching about hope and second chances. In time, the pastor developed feelings for Nkunim, and he eventually proposed to her. For the first time in a long while, Nkunim felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the man who could bring light back into her dark and troubled life. He assured her that his intentions were serious and promised to take her to meet his family. After a few months, the day came for Nkunim to visit the pastor's family home. Nervous but excited, she thought this might finally be the breakthrough she had been waiting for. But when they arrived at the family house, the warm welcome she had hoped for turned cold. As soon as the pastor's mother laid eyes on Nkunim, her face hardened. She pulled her son aside, her voice trembling with anger. "If this is the woman you've chosen to marry, then you are no longer my son," she said sharply, her words piercing through the air like a knife. The pastor stood there in stunned silence, caught between his love for Nkunim and his loyalty to his mother. He tried to reason with her, but she stormed out of the room, leaving them both standing in the wake of her fury. Nkunim, heartbroken once again, could feel her world collapsing around her. The pastor, pressured by his mother's outburst, soon told her that he had no choice but to end their relationship. "I'm sorry, Nkunim," he said, with a heavy heart. "I thought we could make this work, but I can't go against my family." As she walked away from the pastor's home that day, tears streaming down her face, Nkunim realized that something far beyond her control was going on. She was beautiful, respectful, and hard-working, yet misfortune seemed to follow her like a shadow. Every step forward was met with a force pulling her back, leaving her stranded and alone once again. Despite her personal struggles, Nkunim continued to push forward. She was eventually hired to manage a large and prestigious mart in Accra. This job seemed like the fresh start she needed, a chance to prove herself and escape the cloud of bad luck that had been hovering over her. She poured all her energy into the work, determined to make it a success. But after just 2 months, disaster struck again. The company noticed a significant drop in sales, and fingers immediately pointed to Nkunim. "You must be the problem," her supervisor told her one afternoon. "Ever since you started here, the business has been declining." No matter how hard she tried to defend herself, no one listened. The accusations felt like another cruel twist of fate. She was blamed for the company's poor performance, and soon after, she was fired. As she packed her belongings and left the store for the last time, Nkunim couldn't help but feel utterly defeated. Every effort she made seemed to be met with disaster, no matter how much she tried or how pure her intentions were. It was as if she were cursed, destined to fail at everything she touched. Sitting alone in her small apartment that evening, she realized with a sinking feeling that life was slipping through her fingers. She had lost everything: love, career, hope, and she didn't know how much longer she could keep going. One day, as Nkunim wandered the streets of Medina, lost in her thoughts and overwhelmed by desperation, she felt a strange pull. A voice called out to her from a small, dimly lit house on the corner of the street. It was a malam, a spiritualist. She had never seen him before, but something about the urgency in his voice made her stop and look. "Come, my daughter," the Malam called gently. "I see you are burdened, carrying the weight of betrayal and disappointment. It is as if everything you touch crumbles before your eyes. There is a curse upon you, a dark force following you, a weeping spirit." Nkunim hesitated but felt compelled to enter his home. The air was thick with incense, and the flickering light of candles cast shadows on the walls. The Malam sat cross-legged in the center of the room, his eyes closed as though in deep meditation. He motioned for her to sit before him. "I have prayed over your spirit," he said after a long pause, opening his eyes to meet hers. "I see that you have sinned against someone close to you, someone who once loved you deeply. You carry the curse of a weeping mother, a spirit of sorrow that has attached itself to your life. The betrayal and disrespect you showed your mother have turned into a curse, and until you seek her forgiveness, you will never be free. No prayer, no remedy will work unless your mother absolves you." The words hit Nkunim like a thunderbolt. She had denied her mother, the very woman who had sacrificed everything for her. She had insulted her, disrespected her, and now the weight of those actions was suffocating her. Tears streamed down her face as the realization of her betrayal sank deeper into her heart. "I have wronged her," Nkunim cried, her voice trembling. "What can I do? How can I fix this?" "You must hurry to her," the Malam said firmly. "Seek her forgiveness, for only her blessings can lift this curse. Go now, before it is too late." Without hesitation, Nkunim rushed to her hometown, her heart pounding in her chest as regret consumed her. She prayed, hoping it wasn't too late to make things right. She needed her mother's forgiveness. She needed her mother's prayers to redeem herself. But when she arrived, the news she received shattered her even further. "Your mother is in the hospital," a neighbor told her. "She's been very sick, my dear." With fear and sorrow gripping her heart, Nkunim rushed to the hospital. As she entered the ward, her breath caught in her throat. There, lying on the hospital bed, was her mother, frail, weak, and unconscious. The vibrant woman she had once known was now a shadow of her former self, blind and unable to speak. "Mama!" Nkunim wailed as she fell to her knees beside her mother's bed. "Please forgive me. I've come to make things right. I'm so sorry for all the pain I caused you." Her mother stirred slightly, and though she couldn't see, her heart seemed to recognize the presence of her daughter. Tears flowed from her mother's closed eyes, as if she were weeping, but she couldn't speak. She couldn't give Nkunim the absolution she so desperately needed. The days that followed were agonizing for Nkunim. She stayed by her mother's side, praying for a miracle, hoping that her mother would wake up and speak to her. But just a few days later, her mother passed away, without ever uttering a word to her daughter. Nkunim was left with a broken heart and a lifetime of regret. The guilt weighed heavily on her. She had come to ask for forgiveness, but her mother had died without giving her that chance. Nkunim's life spiraled into even deeper hardship. The curse felt stronger than ever. Every step she took felt like a step deeper into despair. She had lost her chance to make things right, and she now lived with the consequences of her actions, knowing it was too late to undo the damage. In Ephesians 6:12, it is written, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." Nkunim came to realize that her battle wasn't just in the physical world. She wasn't simply dealing with failed relationships or business losses. There were spiritual forces at work, consequences for her actions that went beyond what she could see. Nowadays, many people speak to their parents or elders with disrespect, forgetting that curses and blessings come from them. It is written in Proverbs 23:22, "Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old." This teaching reminds us that our parents are the source of life and wisdom. They hold the keys to our success and downfall through the words and actions we show them. Nkunim's story is a painful reminder of how important it is to honor our parents, not just with words, but with respect and actions. In this day and age where social media gives everyone a voice, we often forget to treat the elderly with the reverence they deserve. We use our platforms to insult and criticize without thinking about the consequences. But curses and blessings are real, and they come from our elders. Let this be a lesson to all of us. Never speak ill of your parents or elders, no matter the situation. If you've wronged them, seek their forgiveness before it's too late. Nkunim's life could have been different if she had only realized this sooner. To those watching, I urge you to take this message to heart. Share, like, and comment on this video. Subscribe to Anansi Web of Tales for more life lessons and stories like this. And please share where you are watching this story from. As we reflect on Nkunim's journey, let us all pray. Heavenly Father, I come before you today, asking for forgiveness. For all the times I have disrespected my parents, elders, or anyone who deserved my respect, I am deeply sorry. Lord, deliver me from any curses or negative energy that have come into my life due to my words or actions. Cleanse my heart and make me mindful of my behavior, so that I may walk in your light and receive your blessings. I ask for your grace to heal any broken relationships with the people I have wronged. May I be forgiven, and may the weight of any curse be lifted from my life. Guide me to honor my parents and elders, for in them lies wisdom, blessings, and protection. Amen.